This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And before we get started, please, you have an option of several different Patreon plans from $1 a month on up. You have a fundraiser button you can click on. You've got a PayPal button you can click on. Please make a donation. This podcast and article I just did took me a couple of days. So I mean, even if I only make U.S. minimum wage, which is $7 and whatever it is, 25 cents an hour, I'd have to get at least $100 just to pay for my time at minimum wage. So anything, $1, $2, $3, $4, it doesn't matter. Just please show your support and your recognition of my work to tell the truth about what the 99% needs to know, and also to tell the truth about China's amazing 5,000-year history. Thank you. This one is entitled My Next to Last COVID Swan Song Article, looking back what I think has happened and what is going on today. Pictured above, since the 15th century, never has such a vast amount of natural and human resources been out of the control of the West's deep state global capitalist oligarchy. For them, this is intolerable. Enter coronavirus to make up for the loss. Note before starting, this was supposed to be my COVID swan song article / podcast, but as often happens during the creative / research process, I got taken in a different direction. I will do a follow-up post specifically on COVID. Here we go. Wow, what an unforgettable 2020 year of the metallic rat. It didn't turn out the way most people expected, right? Coronavirus will go down in the history books as the most impactful event in post-war human history, at least until World War III rolls in. At the rate global capitalism is careening out of control into the future, that may be happening sooner than later. What is so striking about COVID is that while tens of countries were little or not affected by the Great War, World War II, yet every country on our pale blue dot has suffered from it. Frighteningly, the way things are looking with the West's big lie propaganda machine, the BLPM, SARS-CoV-2 is becoming a permanent fixture for years to come and possibly forever. For the last 6 months, I have spent hundreds of hours researching, synthesizing, writing, editing, and broadcasting about coronavirus, as well as responding to fans' comments. It got to the point where I was totally burned out and had to stop reporting on it, yet I still kept studying the whole phenomenon, sans publishing on China Rising Radio Sinoland, CRRS. I even put together a CRRS COVID audiovisual library of all my extensive related work. In the process, I was commissioned to write 2 chapters in the soon-to-be-released book called When China Sneezes, From the Coronavirus Lockdown to the Global Politico-Economic Crisis. The editor is Cynthia McKinney, coming out on Clarity Press. It is the ultimate and most authoritative source on the whole coronavirus saga, from the science to the socioeconomics to geopolitics. I donated my work, and I hope you will order a copy. And then, almost as if on cue, along came the murder of a black man, George Floyd, at the hands of Minneapolis police, and all hell is breaking loose around much of the world. So what the fug is going on? An evil alignment of the stars and planets? Should we lay it down to improbable odds? Possibly a global socioeconomic perfect storm? Or is humanity being intentionally pushed and molded in directions for nefarious reasons? Based on all my research and writing, while looking back over the last 6 months, here is what I think is going on. Donald Trump can win red meat votes from his base by making taunting jokes at public rallies about the, quote, Chinese flu and Wuhan flu, and more recently using a really good play on words with Kung Flu. Yet it is clear that COVID did not start in China, but in the United States and or Europe. Just this week, Spain admitted coronavirus was already circulating there as early as March 2019. COVID was in the United States at least as early as the summer of 2019 too. This is based on solid evidence of it circulating at that time around Fort Detrick, the world's biggest germ warfare lab, with nursing homes having many mysterious respiratory illnesses and deaths within just a few kilometers of this bioterrorism center, as well as vapors, the artificial smoking, as well as vapors, sickened and dying in the vicinity from, quote, what they were calling glass lungs, when vaping was not a problem anywhere else in the world. Then the U.S. sport team for the Military World Games trained near Fort Detrick at Fort Belvoir and went to Wuhan, China to participate in October 2019. Either they brought it intentionally to start an outbreak in Wuhan, where they stayed only 300 meters from the local wet market where it seemed to start, or they arrived having been infected back in Maryland, USA. Later it was learned the U.S. team's hotel staff was sick with a, quote, mysterious, end of quote, flu, thus establishing ground zero for COVID. Either way would explain their pitifully laughable performance in the competition. They were mocked in Chinese social media as the, quote, soy sauce soldiers, end of quote, for their pathetic effort. Thus, they were not really athletes, but bioterrorism field specialists who knew how to infect Wuhan, or they arrived too sick to perform well, maybe both. This timeline clearly shows the step-by-step history of COVID outlined above. Of course, all my articles tend to have lots of hyperlinks, so click on that one and you'll get the whole poop. All the weirdness happening around Fort Detrick a year ago, which was tellingly shut down at that time by the U.S. Center for Disease Control, the CDC, fully 6 months before the BLPM made Wuhan and China hexed household names around the world, making for damning proof that COVID was being developed there. Given the long, sordid, and evil history of Uranglo land, happily sickening, maiming, and killing hundreds of thousands of its own citizens with bio and chemical weapons, as well as tens of millions of exterminated, mostly dark-skinned victims around the world, I'd bet you a dime to a dollar that coronavirus was developed as a bioweapon in the U.S., where it got transmitted intentionally or accidentally in Europe. The problem is there is tremendous official and geopolitical pressure to deny this probable reality. Baba Beijing won't admit it. If they did, it would create such a national public outcry for an adequate response to the U.S.'s declaration of biowar, i.e. a hot war. Otherwise, Xi Jinping and company would lose all credibility and their heavenly mandate to lead the nation. My discussion of this is probably why about 2 weeks ago China Rising Radio Sinoland was blocked in China, but that doesn't make the U.S. bioterrorism play any less likely. Other really suspicious observations were that after being symphonically branded the Chinese flu by the BLPM, it miraculously leapt to mortal imperial enemy Iran all the way across Asia, especially among top-level government officials. Then it frog-leaped all the way to Italy, which put an imperial bullseye on its back by being the first G7 country to sign a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to work hand-in-hand with China's visionary Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. Then, for good measure, it popped up in socialist Spain before moving on elsewhere. So, you might be asking, then why did it spread to the U.S. and all its many vassal whores in NATO and beyond? Assuming COVID is a bioweapon, it has proven that the deep state does not have to have a high kill rate to be effective in creating mass mayhem, global hysteria, and economic destruction against perceived enemies. And the above statement says it all. For the West's oligarchic elite deep state, and that is the CIA, MI6, the gangster banksters, Wall Street London, and NATO, you, I, and every last soul among the global 99% are the enemy to be raped, plundered, and enslaved. This is not new. We are their livestock to be treated accordingly. Western governance has always been a system of official, quote, legal, aristocratic gangsterism going back to ancient Greece and Rome. Eurangloland's 1% are the world's organized crime dons, and we are their loan shark clients. Since the 1980s global suicide plunge into neoliberalism, Tina, Margaret Thatcher's "There is no alternative," capitalism has been tracking its very predictable cycle of ever-increasing wealth for the West's mafia supremos, all of it coming out of the 99%'s back pockets and assets. Remember the U.S. savings and loan banks being looted? The 1988 stock market crash? The 1997 destruction of Asia's tiger economies? The 2000 dot-com mega fraud? And the 2008 rape of America's poor and middle classes? These were not random events. They were planned oligarchic heists, which they call harvesting. Now in their plunder playbook, we are getting hit with COVID, which is the most pharaonic, audacious money theft in human history. It is making all the above corporate crime capers combined look like juvenile shoplifting. Imperial extractive colonialism still rapes and loots every country in the world, in which Eurangloland citizens are becoming more and more impoverished and enslaved, except for the short list of communist, socialist, anti-imperialist nations. For the first time since 15th century's advent of global capitalism, never have so many natural riches and people not been sodomized by the Western deep state, and we have communism, socialism to thank for this. Today, this list of free, independent, unoccupied peoples includes the Big Seven in descending order of PPP, or purchasing power parities, GDP, China, Russia, Iran, Vietnam, Venezuela, DPRK, or more commonly known as North Korea, and Cuba. These seven resource and technology behemoths own much of planet Earth's limited natural resources, produce a prodigious amount of technology, manufacturing, and they ram white-knuckled fear up NATO's cowardly bully boy backside. It is for this reason that Eurangloland has been waging all-out economic, geopolitical, and military war against them since 1917 in Russia, 1945/1975 in Vietnam, 1945/1953 in DPRK, China in 1949, 1959 in Cuba, Iran in 1980, and 1992 in Venezuela, in order to regain their rape and plunder, as was the case before these dates. Not only the Big Seven, but there are other communist, socialist, anti-imperial countries that are off the West's colonial sodomization list: Laos, Cambodia, Eritrea, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Nicaragua, and several of the small states in ALBA. Other once dependable lackeys like Turkey, Malaysia, Philippines, Pakistan, and Mongolia are breaking their imperial chains, charting more multipolar strategies and regional win-win synergies. Thailand has the distinction of never being colonized by the West and has been independent of imperial domination for centuries. One could argue for and against this list of countries and add others, but you get the idea. Alas, there are sadly countries being raped and plundered by Eurangloland as I write, including Palestine, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and more recently, Bolivia and Ecuador. All told, never has global colonial capitalism been deprived of sodomizing so many countries, natural resources, and peoples since the 1400s, which brings us to the present. After stealing about all they could in their ever-spiraling vacuuming of assets, and with the imperial Bretton Woods dictatorship reaching its point of diminishing marginal returns, the BLPM's COVID hysteria and panic has given Urangloland's deep state the chance they have long planned to amass many trillions more in capital at our expense and make their final push for humanity's fascist New World Order / One World government of totalitarian, transnational, corporate tyranny. For the greatest heist in human history, I point you to Ellen Brown's excellent analysis. She knows her stuff. For the oligarchs' police state COVID push to drive the global 99% into a dystopian deep state dictatorship, I encourage you to read Larry Romanoff's sobering analysis of how Greece and Iraq are being looted and enslaved like blood hosts by Urangloland's capitalistic, parasitic vampire squid. Unless we, our children and grandchildren, can overcome the deep state oligarchs' final plan, within a generation, all of us will be enslaved and impoverished like the Greeks and Iraqis. Can these psychopathic criminals be stopped? Humanity's hope lies in the dreams and solidarity among the proud, independent, and free peoples of the communist, socialist, anti-imperial Big Seven. They are the only global citizens who have done it and keep doing it. As I have recently reported, while admirable and with the best of intentions, protests about racism, George Floyd, police brutality, statues, identity politics, and face masks / lockdowns are carefully orchestrated BLPM deep state rabbit holes to deflect the 99%'s much merited anger from the real evildoers, the West Deep State. It's all part of their diabolical dystopian plans for you, me, our children and grandchildren. In the West, at least the yellow vests in France are attacking the right target. The French know a thing or two about effective revolution. Yet there needs to be 1 million yellow vest movements across our threatened pale blue dot to reach victory. Can we make it happen? I don't know. Maybe I should apply for citizenship in one of the Big Seven countries. This is Jeff J. Brown signing out. I'm sorry, it is so freaking hot out here. I'm sweating like a horse. So you'll have to pardon me. I'm doing the best I can under a very difficult situation. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.